don't know who it was who was just speaking, said like people are running candidates to delegitimize the political system. I'm totally down with that. I'm curious to hear more about how that is working. I very strongly advocate people not voting. Travis said he wasn't here to say that. Well, I'm here to say that. I think it's super important to not vote and to openly delegitimize it, because already the majority of people who are eligible to vote don't vote, and there's a whole hell of a lot more here and around the world who aren't even allowed to be included in that, and who have to deal with the military repercussions occupying their land. It's a criminal government. It has been from the start. I don't know how people can possibly engage with it on its own terrain without fundamentally challenging it and just saying, no, this is all bullshit. And I would love to hear more about how people are doing that who are running candidates in their campaigns. How much time do I have?
About 30 seconds.
You mentioned Occupy becoming national, needing to recruit. I can't stand the word recruit. I don't think that we need to. I think the solutions are in people generating our own content for our own lives locally, and we don't need to try to perform to the stage politics that is created by the political theater. And as far as education being usurped right now, that doesn't make sense to me, because education was never for the people in the first place. It's always been created to mold children, youth, into things that people in the industrial economy want them to be. So fuck education. Sorry for that language. Anywho, yeah, I guess I'll just end on that.
Thanks, Cody. Okay, next three is Bryce, and there's way too many hands. So Bryce, I saw Chris before, and we'll just kind of go around the room this way, okay? And what was your name?
Oh, damn.
Okay, Bryce.
Okay, there's kind of two things. One thing I've noticed is that, we like, on our side, we like to get riled up, which is good. And yeah, I feel like, this two-party system is using crazy words that Republicans say, crazy offensive words, to get us fired up to just support the Democrats. I know I'm stepping out onto thin ice here because I'm a man, but I see both parties are going in a loop about abortion, pro-choice or against it, for all these various reasons, like it was the only issue that mattered to women, or like a woman who's forced to get an abortion because of poverty is really making a choice, or like the president gets to decide this when it was actually the Supreme Court in Roe v. Wade. And I really look at it and realize neither candidate wants it. Both candidates want to fight about this, because they don't want to talk to us about war and peace or the economy, because they have nothing to offer us. My last thing, I think it's very important to vote. Right now, only about half the electorate votes, and that half that does is concentrated among the wealthy and the white. So it's no wonder that people of color, poor, working class whites, and young people are ignored. Neither party needs to even bother to pander to them, much less provide for them, because they don't vote enough. And if we want to build a new party, that will take voters. So I also feel like if 80 to 90% of the potential electorate was voting, and we were getting the kind of crappy results we're getting, there would be a revolution. But you can't have a revolution from apathy. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start out by saying Philip said in his statement that Occupy, the radicals, hadn't made enough impact to show that there was a need for a revolution that way. Something similar to that. 1 year will never define a movement. Radicalization will come from within, from us teaching and stuff like that. I understand why everybody votes. I don't agree with it. We all know that the election is fraudulent. We all know that there's no way we can compete against it with the money that they have. So we all are fighting that same problem. And I'm glad that everybody's doing it whichever way they feel they should. But I mean, there is a quote by Albert Einstein that says, no problem can be solved with the same consciousness that created it. So if our government was started with the Constitution, that Constitution isn't going to work because it's been flawed from the beginning. We had Jim Crow laws before. We have new Jim Crow type laws today. The disenfranchisement of the people from the voting system is why we only get 40 to 50% of the people voting. So I'm glad that you're doing something. I'll help you in any way I can even, actually. I'll stand right next to you in solidarity while you're campaigning. I'm glad you're doing something, but as Travis said, on November 6th this year, please come out and support all the other things that are going on that are trying to change. Because me, as a radical, I will come out and support every action that I see any campaign, any socialist party doing, any green party, I forget the name of the new party, Justice Party. I actually like the name of it, too. So, I mean, in that sense, I'll stand there with you, too. Please come out and join us, too. Thanks, I yield.
Yeah, my name's Dan. I'm with Socialist Alternative. Please don't take this any disrespect, but I think the left spends entirely too much time preaching to the choir, as it were. You know, it's nice, we can all agree to a lot of things, but really it's what effect we can have in society, and if we're going to have an effect, we're going to have to reach out to a lot more people. And one of the things that Occupy showed was that there's a lot of soft support for these ideas. I mean, I was at the Occupy camp. I wasn't actually camping, but, you know, just out tabling. Like every third car going by was honking. Okay, that says that there's a lot of support for it, but nobody's actually in the encampment because they got busy lives. Okay, so, you know, we got to think about ways that we can actually start reaching out to folks. And I mean, I realize people, you know, say that okay, yeah, voting's a real serious problem, but remember, that's what people are cultured to is they're used to voting, and we're really, the problem is we're lacking a vote in the one place that it matters, in your workplace. You know, it would really be nice if you could get people to come to a showing of the Take or the Battle of Chile, where you actually show workers voting in their workplace to decide how they're going to do things. Hopefully people, you know, this idea catches on, we might actually have something going. But, you know, I mean, it's good to have, you know, this idea of community, but remember, we've got an economy that's guaranteed to be global. I mean, we're relying upon infrastructure here in this country that's from resources that are not locally sourced. They're mostly like from Africa, stolen from that, and it does wonderful things for us. Doesn't do much for Africans. But I mean, it says that the economy has been global since, like, you know, forever. You know, so this idea that somehow we're going to go into community completely ignores the fact that we've got to deal with the fact that resources are being moved all across the planet, and a lot of times it's being done by force. And it's like, with those resources, we can actually have everybody in the entire planet to have a wonderful life. It's just that it's all done by profit instead of by voting.
Thank you, Dan. All right, we'll try to take three from back here. What's your name?
Steve.
Steve. Anyone else back here? Okay, Steve.
Chris.
Ted. Steve, Chris, Ted.
Hi, my name is Steve Lee. I'm with the International Socialist Organization, and thanks to everybody for putting this on and having this dialogue. I think that the main thing that we need to look at when we're talking about running candidates is how does it impact the struggle? Because struggle, as people have said, has been a real key factor that's won all of these things. All of the gains that we've won have been because of mass movements. They haven't really, the politics kind of partially reflect this. So the key thing is how does it impact struggle? And to be honest, I don't think this year running a lot of small campaigns is really going to help to build the struggle. I think it's great for people to vote for left-wing candidates. I have nothing against that. I'm sure I will. I definitely will not vote for Democrats or Republicans. I think the main problem of some of the movements is allegiance to the Democratic Party, and what the movements often do is trim their sails to the politics of the Democrats, whatever they think is possible in the Congress, that kind of thing. And that's something we really got to break away from. I also like to point out that there are some really important ballot initiatives for people who can vote, and I definitely think it's important for people to vote on those. Marriage equality, for example, and against charter schools, and there's probably others that I'm forgetting. These are where we can begin to make an impact in the electoral arena. And I think for people who say don't vote, I think you ought to reassess that, at least when it comes to those kind of ballot initiatives.
Yeah, I'm with the Freedom Socialist Party and the Durham Lopez campaign, and on the issue of why we're in the election, we are doing a write-in campaign, and we're doing a write-in campaign because, first of all, it's impossible to get on the ballot in 50 states when you're a small socialist party. But by the same reason that we decided to do that, we wanted to avoid all the infrastructure that you get caught up in when you run a campaign, and we wanted to use the campaign process to get out socialist ideas. So it's getting out the ideas is more important than trying to get 100 signatures here and pay $50 there and this, that, and the other. So getting our ideas out is important. We also feel very strongly that you don't just do one thing at a time. You don't just do an election campaign. You fight on every front there is. You fight in the streets, you fight in the courts, you fight, all over, wherever. You fight inside coalitions that are being taken over by Democrats. I mean, that's a real important place to fight. And everyone in this room who is opposed to the Democrats and the Republicans, if we banded together in those coalitions and fought against the Democrats, we could make a real dent there. We don't do that. And I can still remember some of the big anti-war coalitions, 300 or 400 people, where we called a left caucus at one point, and everybody on the left either came out in the hallway to talk about how we were going to proceed, or they didn't come out in the hallway because they were too sucked into the church council or whoever else was there that they were feeling responsible to. So I think in terms of this question of how we work together, we have an agreement that we don't like the Democrats and Republicans telling us what to do. So next time we're in a coalition, whether it's with anarchists or socialists or liberals who don't like the Democrats or progressives, we should work together. And that's what I would hope would come out of this sort of forum.
I wanted to speak to the thread of comments about the Occupy movement and how we can build the Occupy movement and this dichotomy between voting and kind of building the struggle in the streets because, I'm Ted, I'm the Socialist Alternative and the Vote Swamp campaign. I think that it's not, I think that dichotomy can be a mistake, and I really disagree with the point saying don't vote at all. There's plenty of countries in the world that have dictatorships where people can't vote, and nevertheless, the ruling class is still able to rule those countries. It's not voting itself is not the be all and end all ruling class control. Although they do have the voting system in this country stacked to their advantage, and that's something that we're all dealing with in this room. But something happens every single time there's a presidential election throughout the history of this country, and that's the movement's collapse. I remember in 2004, I was riding in the elevator. I was in an elevator, and the woman comes in, and she's got a John Kerry button on, and I've got a Ralph Nader button on, and we get to discussing the war in Iraq, which previous to that election campaign was this massive movement, and she was saying that she was against the war, and I was saying, well, no, your candidate supports the war. She says, no, he's against the war. He wants to finish the war. How is that an anti-war position? And that's what happens to movements. People support some candidate, and then they start finding some way, either a Democrat or Republican, and they find some way of shifting their movement's message to make it get in line with that candidate, and then suddenly that movement collapses. And it's not an accident that Occupy all around the country is less strong this year than it was last year. So how do we deal with that? Do we just let the Democrats and Republicans run the election, and have all the media, all the spotlight, all the discourse in that election? I think that's a mistake. I think we have to go in there with our own candidates. And we have to use those candidates as the biggest megaphone we can for whatever movements are happening at that time, in order to and then use that momentum after the election strike that, to have that movement be even bigger and better than it was before. And I'd like to end by throwing out one idea for this room, which is the Vote Salon campaign has gotten a lot of momentum right now, and we're talking about using.
And so we're going to move on. Sorry. I've been really strict about the time with everyone else. I cut Jack off, so I can't let one person go more than 2 minutes. So we're almost out of time, actually. I'm going to have Gentry, just for 2 or 3 minutes, really quick, tell us about the disenfranchisement caused by the mail-in ballot.
Okay. I would like 2 minutes to talk about our 11 electoral college votes at some point, because that's all we have control
So we're going to actually have 15 minutes to mingle and to talk to people about that.
Thanks for letting me speak. I came over from Bremerton, took some time off work. Sorry I didn't check in time. I'm from the No Vote by Mail project. A lot of people don't understand the voting by mail system. Have you ever thought about the fact that your vote by mail is not a secret ballot? I'll return to this as I speak a couple times. I'm going to give you a Cliff Note version of what I've learned as a voting activist over the years. I've learned that your vote is often not counted, and the various reasons for why this is. I've learned many of the ways in which error rates are added to the system which invalidate the results of most of our elections. Everyone here learned in science class, I hope, the simple scientific reality that you must know both the accuracy and the precision of the tools you use in order to measure anything, really, right? Well, the accounting of votes is no different, and in Washington State, our current margins of error far exceed our margins of victory, regularly. Don't believe me, believe King County alone. Did you know that in 2008, more than 16,000 ballots were thrown out in King County? Does anybody know that in this room? Over 16,000 votes were thrown out. We're on track to throw out 20,000 in King County alone in this next election. I personally, as a voting activist, have gotten letters, in fact, telling me that my vote was not counted. So have my friends, Andrew Friedman and Andy Stevenson, both living and dead, and maybe some of you have gotten these same letters. I've also learned that my business partner's niece, at the age of 13, maybe 14 now, has been getting ballots in King County for several election cycles. Maybe she'll vote for Jill Stein. I mean, it can't hurt to cast a protest vote when you're 14, can it? She doesn't have to vote for the lesser of two evils, does she? In fact, I've learned and painfully documented the many, many ways in which your vote is lost, stolen, destroyed, manipulated, bought, sold, collected, gerrymandered, and thrown out, or ejected from the system both legally and illegally, or simply not counted at all on my blog, the No Vote by Mail Project, and I've posted multiple accounts of elected officials using absentee ballots throughout our country, most infamously in Miami-Dade County in the 1990s, and more recently by Republicans, Democrats, and Vladimir Putin alike. In history, the oldest case of absentee ballot fraud I've found so far was William Pitt in the 1600s. And I have also learned that the voting system, the right to vote, democracy itself, is something that we must, every generation, fight for. We didn't start out with a great egalitarian democratic republic, just the idea of one. And we don't have one now, but I do think it's still an idea worth fighting for. Because I believe today we face an unprecedented assault on our democratic republic, both in nature and size. This is something manifesting that has been growing for years. It's not just bringing some of the votes some of the time, but we have allowed a system to take hold in this country that allows for the wholesale electioneering of the entire system. This is the 500-pound gorilla in the room no one seems to understand. I have a couple, maybe a minute. The cessation of the precinct hand-counted paper ballot system in favor of computerized voting and computerized vote by mail, 100% absentee, 100% computerized voting, is a fundamentally different beast. It should be laughable on its face. I literally should not have to explain why this is a bad idea to anyone, but I do, and so I do often. We have given in to our base desire to be lazy, to not participate, to seek convenience over thoughts of accuracy and precision or ideals like honesty, public ownership, or involvement in the very fundamentals of our election system. In a computerized voting system, you still maintain a precinct voting system. You still have the little old ladies, the little old men still there, still manning the system. So if you want to give the computerized vote stealers a swift kick in the ass, all you have to do is let the old people count the votes. After all, they're still watching you feed your paper ballot into the vote-stealing machine. The problem for the voting machine companies was that lots of people hated computerized voting because you could see the mean machine right there in front of you stealing your vote. Seriously, there is video proof of this all over the web.
Thank you, Gentry, for telling us how our ballot system disenfranchises us, even if we're voting out there voting for parties. Now we have about 10 minutes left in the room, maybe 15 or so. So I want to encourage everyone, this was a very, very, very short period of time to have so many different ideals to talk about, right? There's no way we even started scratching the surface. The point is for you all to, can you believe we're all in the same room right now? Socialist, Justice Party, Anarchist, Green Party, this is really cool. And I want us to take the next 10 or 15 minutes, find somebody that is not from your belief system and talk to them and march next to them. So we're going to start the march at just a few minutes after 7. As soon as I get all this stuff back in my car, we'll march down the 4 into Rainier to the Dems HQ, where we will be auctioning off your vote. So if you would like to auction your vote off to Microsoft, to Wells Fargo, or to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, so sorry, or to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, you'll have that opportunity. And I encourage everybody to take some time, get on the bullhorn, and tell the Dems what you want to tell them. But please, find somebody that doesn't share your belief system and march next to them, because when we stand shoulder to shoulder in the streets, that's really going to help us build a solidarity where we can trust those people, even though they may not be using their vote the same way that we are. We know that they're not using it for the Democrats or the Republicans. Sound good? All right.